Amara, a 23-year-old woman living in Lagos, worked tirelessly for years, saving every little amount she could from her modest job. Finally, her dream came true when she bought her very first car, a small but reliable vehicle that meant freedom and independence. She was filled with pride, but when she showed it to her family, instead of joy, her parents brushed it off as nothing special. They told her it was just a small achievement, not worth celebrating. The words cut deep, but she kept quiet, choosing to enjoy her little victory. Her older sister, Kelechi, was the opposite of Amara. While Amara was careful with every naira, Kelechi lived recklessly. She spent freely on clothes, parties, and unnecessary luxuries. On top of that, she often found herself in hospitals due to her careless habits, and medical bills piled up alongside her lifestyle debts. Their parents always excused her behavior, saying she was fragile and needed more attention, while Amara was expected to be strong and provide for herself. Amara didn't complain. She kept working hard and taking care of her responsibilities. But deep inside, she felt the weight of being overlooked, her achievements downplayed while her sister's mistakes were forgiven again and again. The car symbolized more than just transportation. It was a reward for years of sacrifice, late nights, and skipped pleasures. For her, it was proof that discipline and determination could lead to progress. Still, every time she parked it at home, she noticed the way her parents treated it, as though it was simply another object, not the milestone it truly was. Kelechi often made comments, mocking Amara for being too proud of just a car, while she herself had nothing to show. What Amara didn't realize was that her sister's troubles were already brewing into something much bigger, something that would soon shake the family and test her strength in ways she never imagined. For now, though, she held on to her joy, smiling quietly whenever she drove to work, feeling the air of freedom against her face. It was her little world, her achievement, her proof that hard work pays off, even when no one else celebrates you. But this small victory would soon become the center of betrayal, a painful lesson, and the beginning of a journey that would transform Amara's life forever. One day Amara returned home from work feeling tired but happy, ready to rest after a long day. She walked toward the spot where she always parked her car, but something felt strange. The space was empty. At first, she thought maybe she had parked somewhere else or maybe a neighbor had moved it. She searched around, confusion growing into panic. Her heart raced as she called out to her parents inside the house, asking if they had seen her car. With calm faces, her parents told her the shocking truth. They had sold it. Amara froze, unable to believe what she had just heard. That car was her pride, the result of years of saving and sacrifice, and now it was gone without a word or even her permission. She asked why they would do something so cruel, and their reply cut deeper than the loss itself. They said they needed the money to cover Kelechi's hospital expenses and her endless personal bills. Her mother's voice was firm as she said, "Family comes first. You can always buy another car, but your sister needed this." Amara's chest tightened as anger mixed with sadness. She thought of the late nights she had worked, the times she had walked home under the hot sun, the patience it had taken to finally buy something for herself. And now, in a single decision, it was stripped away. Her sister, Kelechi, who never took responsibility, was once again rescued at her expense. The betrayal stung even more, because it came from the very people she trusted the most. Her parents had not even asked her, not even considered how much the car meant to her. To them, it was just an object that could be replaced. But to Amara, it was a symbol of freedom, independence, and dignity. She felt invisible in her own home, her sacrifices ignored, her dreams dismissed. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at them, expecting regret, but instead they stood by their decision, calling it the right thing to do. At that moment, Amara realized her place in the family was never equal. Her efforts would always be taken for granted while Kelechi's mistakes would always be covered. That painful night became the turning point in her heart, planting a seed of determination she didn't yet understand but would later grow into something no one could ever take from her again. Amara felt crushed, betrayed, and angry. The pain in her chest was heavier than words could explain. She had worked so hard for that car, and now it was gone, not because of a stranger, but because of her own family. Every time she remembered her parents' cold explanation, her heart broke again. She wanted to scream, but instead, she carried the weight in silence, trying to hide her feelings from the world. The next morning, when she left for work, she had no car to drive. She walked along the streets just as she had done before buying it. Neighbors who once admired her independence now whispered as she passed by. At her workplace, co-workers exchanged glances, pretending not to gossip, but she could hear their quiet comments. Didn't she have a car? Maybe she couldn't maintain it. Their whispers followed her like shadows, burning her with shame. What hurt the most was that Kelechi, the very reason her car was taken, showed no gratitude. Instead, she grew bolder. Sitting comfortably at home, she looked Amara in the eyes and said, "Your money is my money." Those words stabbed deeper than any knife. It was not only about losing a car, it was about losing respect. Kelechi acted as if Amara's hard work existed only to serve her, and their parents allowed it. At family gatherings, Kelechi paraded around as if she had won some great battle. She bragged about how everything eventually came to her, while Amara remained the one who sacrificed. Friends who once celebrated Amara's success now pitied her, and that pity hurt almost as much as the betrayal. Each step she took on the road reminded her of the cruel reality that her independence had been stolen, and her dignity questioned. Inside, a storm was growing. She couldn't shake the humiliation, the feeling of being invisible in her own family, the pain of knowing that her dreams had been dismissed so easily. Yet beneath the anger, a quiet fire began to rise. Amara refused to let this be the end of her story. She had been humiliated, she had been mocked, but something in her spirit whispered that this pain would not destroy her. It would one day become the very fuel that pushed her toward a future no one could take away. Amara argued with her parents, her voice shaking with hurt and anger. She asked them how they could take away the one thing she had worked for without even asking her. Instead of understanding her pain, they turned the blame on her. They called her selfish, saying she cared more about a car than her sister's life. Their words pierced her heart, making her feel like a stranger in her own home. No matter how she tried to explain, they refused to see her side. To them, she was being stubborn, unwilling to sacrifice again for the family. That night, Amara sat alone in her room, tears streaming down her face. The house that was supposed to be her comfort now felt like a prison. Every corner reminded her of the betrayal. Every glance from her parents carried judgment, and every laugh from Kelechi sounded like mockery. She realized she could no longer breathe in that space. Staying there would only break her spirit more. With a heavy heart, she packed a small bag, not knowing what the future held, but certain she could not stay another day under that roof. Amara went to her cousin Toby's house. Toby welcomed her warmly, giving her a place to stay without questions or judgment. For the first time in weeks, Amara felt seen. She poured out her pain, telling him everything, how she felt robbed, humiliated, and abandoned by those who should have protected her. Toby listened quietly and then spoke words that stayed with her. "Stop breaking yourself for people who don't value your sacrifices. This is your time to focus on you." Those words planted courage in her heart. Amara began to see that leaving home wasn't running away. It was choosing peace over constant pain. She started to imagine a life where she could chase her own dreams without being held back by her family's endless demands. Though it was difficult, she knew this was the only way to protect her spirit. As she lay on Toby's couch that night, she whispered to herself that she deserved better. The tears still came, but behind them was a new determination. She would no longer be the one always giving until she had nothing left. This breaking point was painful, but it was also the moment her story began to change. Amara threw herself into her career at a tech company, pouring all her energy into work. Every morning she arrived before most people and stayed long after others had gone home. She wanted to escape the pain of her family's betrayal, and the only way she knew how was by building something of her own. The office became her safe space, a place where her effort was noticed and rewarded. To earn extra income, she started taking freelance jobs at night. While others rested, she sat in front of her laptop, writing codes, solving problems, and building websites for clients. The long hours were exhausting, but she refused to give up. Each new project brought her closer to her goal of independence. Her determination began to catch the eye of her mentor, Mr. Adeyemi, a respected figure in the industry who admired her discipline and resilience. One evening, after seeing her dedication, Mr. Adeyemi encouraged her to think bigger. He told her she had the skill and vision to start her own company. At first, Amara doubted herself. But with his guidance, she began to believe. Together they mapped out ideas, and with small savings and his support, she launched her own startup. It was a shaky beginning, full of challenges, rejections, and sleepless nights, but she pushed through every obstacle. The first few months were hard, but little by little, clients started trusting her services. The work she had once done as side jobs turned into full contracts for her business. Each success gave her confidence, and soon she was hiring a small team to help with the growing demand. The girl who once cried over losing her only car was now signing deals with companies she once dreamed of working for. Amara's startup began to shine in the tech community. Her name spread as someone who turned struggle into strength. The money started coming in, not just a little, but serious income that allowed her to live on her own terms. Every deposit into her account reminded her that resilience was stronger than betrayal. What her family thought was the end of her progress had only become the fuel for something greater. She was no longer just an employee. She was a business owner carving her place in the world. Amara distanced herself from her family as her new life began to take shape. She no longer rushed home after work, no longer tried to please parents who never valued her sacrifices. The constant calls for help became fewer because she stopped answering every demand. Her silence spoke louder than any argument. She chose peace over endless guilt, and though it hurt, she knew it was the only way to grow. Her parents soon began to complain. They said she had changed, that she was no longer the daughter who contributed to every need. To them, her independence felt like pride. They could not see that she was simply tired of being taken for granted. They told relatives that Amara had become distant, painting her as ungrateful, while ignoring the part they played in pushing her away. Still, Amara kept her distance, reminding herself that protecting her heart was more important than winning their approval. Meanwhile, Kelechi continued her reckless lifestyle. She spent money as fast as it came, chasing luxury she could not afford. Whenever she fell into debt, she turned to their parents, who always found a way to excuse her behavior. Late nights, hospital visits, and mounting bills became a pattern, but nothing changed. While Amara built her life brick by brick, Kelechi lived as though someone else would always clean up her mess. Relatives began to notice the contrast. One sister was climbing steadily, respected in her field, admired for her strength. The other was sinking deeper into carelessness, yet still treated as the one to protect. Neighbors whispered about the unfairness, but the family pretended not to hear. Amara stayed silent, refusing to explain herself. She had wasted too much energy trying to be understood. In her quiet moments, Amara sometimes felt sadness about the growing gap. She still loved her family, but she no longer trusted them with her heart. The bond had been broken the day her car was sold, and though forgiveness might come later, the closeness was gone. Instead, she poured her love into her work, her friends, and the few relatives who truly supported her. The distance was painful, but it gave her the strength to build a future no one could take away. Amara landed a massive international contract that changed everything for her. The deal was bigger than anything she had ever imagined, and it opened doors she once only dreamed about. The same girl who once cried over losing her small car was now signing papers that placed her company on the global stage. The payments that came from that contract were enough to give her a new kind of freedom, one she had never felt before. The first thing she did was reward herself. This time, she didn't buy just any car. She bought a luxury SUV, shining and powerful, a vehicle that represented how far she had come. Sitting behind the wheel, she felt the difference in every detail. The comfort, the smooth drive, the pride of owning something she had earned completely on her own. It was more than transportation. It was proof of her growth, a symbol that no betrayal could stop her rise. But Amara didn't stop there. Her vision grew bigger. With her love for cars and the money she was now making, she began to expand into the automobile world. Slowly, she built connections, studied the market, and invested wisely. What started as a painful memory of losing one car now turned into a dealership business. Soon, she wasn't just buying cars for herself. She was selling luxury vehicles to high-class clients across Lagos. She kept everything quiet from her parents. They had never celebrated her wins before, so she felt no need to share them now. Whenever relatives asked how she was doing, she smiled politely but never gave details. In silence, her empire grew, and her success spoke for itself. While her family thought she was still just working a regular job, she was already building a name known far beyond her city. Every night, Amara looked at her journey with gratitude. The pain of the past had pushed her to this point, and though she carried scars, she also carried strength. She remembered how people had mocked her when she lost her first car, and now she had an entire business built around cars. What once felt like the end had become her greatest breakthrough, and she held on to that lesson as her life soared higher. Years later, Kelechi's debts spiraled out of control once again. Her reckless lifestyle had not changed. She kept spending money she did not have, attending parties, buying expensive clothes, and relying on others to rescue her. The loans piled up, hospitals kept sending bills, and creditors began knocking at the family's door. The same story repeated itself, only this time the situation was much worse. Their parents grew worried and restless. They remembered the past when Amara had been forced to lose her car to save Kelechi. In their eyes, Amara was still the answer, the one who could step in and clean up the mess. They called her, urging her to come home, telling her she had to help your sister like before. They reminded her of family duty, of blood ties, and how Kelechi's problems affected them all. Amara listened calmly, but inside she felt a sharp sting of old wounds. She remembered clearly the night her car was sold without her consent, the humiliation she faced, and the words that branded her as selfish. She thought of the sacrifices she had made, the sleepless nights of rebuilding herself, and the silence she endured while being mocked. She had not forgotten. She could not forget. This time she refused. With a steady voice, she reminded them of the betrayal that had once broken her spirit. She told them that while she forgave, she would never allow herself to be used again. Her parents grew angry, calling her heartless, but Amara stood firm. She had learned the hard way that love did not mean losing yourself for people who never valued your sacrifices. Kelechi tried to manipulate her with guilt, but Amara did not move. She watched her sister's downfall unfold, not out of spite but out of strength. Everyone needed to face the results of their choices. She would not take away the lessons Kelechi had to learn for herself. Though her parents could not understand, Amara felt peace in her heart. She knew that protecting her boundaries was the reason she had reached this stage in life. She had turned pain into power, and she would never trade that strength for pity. This time, the answer was no, and it was the most powerful no she had ever spoken. Family gathering at her parents' home, where Amara showed up late. Everyone was already seated, laughing, and talking when she finally walked in. Her parents looked at her with cold eyes, and Kelechi quickly took the chance to mock her. They whispered to relatives that Amara was still bitter, that she thought she was too important to arrive on time. Their words carried laughter, but Amara stayed calm, her face showing no reaction. Inside, the room buzzed with judgment, but outside a different kind of sound was waiting. Suddenly, the roar of engines filled the street. Heads turned as neighbors rushed to their windows, surprised by the sight. A fleet of shining luxury cars had pulled up in front of the house, polished to perfection, lined up like a royal procession. The sound silenced the mocking voices inside. People stood up, curious, and hurried to the door. Amara remained quiet as whispers spread through the crowd. Everyone wondered who the cars belonged to. Kelechi smirked until the realization hit her. It was Amara's convoy. The cars were from her dealership, proof of the empire she had built in silence. The same woman who once cried over losing a small car now had more vehicles than her family could ever imagine. She stepped forward with grace, her presence commanding attention without a single word. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a set of keys, and turned to her cousin Toby, the only one who had stood by her through the pain. With a calm voice she said, "Pick whichever one you want." Gasps filled the air as Toby's eyes widened in disbelief. The moment was powerful. Amara had not only rebuilt her life, but had risen beyond limits. Her parents and Kelechi stood frozen, unable to speak. The same family that once dismissed her achievement now watched in shock as she revealed the fruit of her resilience. The silence in the air was heavy, broken only by the purr of the engines outside. In that instant, everyone knew the truth. Amara had turned betrayal into strength, and no one could take that away from her. It was a scene they would never forget. The car you sold was the seed of everything you see today. You didn't just sell my car. You sold my pain into my fuel. Amara's words echoed through the room, sharp but calm. carrying the weight of every sacrifice she had made. Her parents lowered their eyes, unable to look at her, while Kelechi shifted uncomfortably, realizing the truth she had ignored for years. The same car they dismissed as just a small thing had grown into an empire, and the woman they called selfish now stood before them stronger than ever. Amara did not raise her voice, she did not boast. Her presence alone was enough to silence the room. She looked at each of them with steady eyes and continued, explaining that everything they had taken from her had only pushed her to fight harder. Instead of destroying her, the betrayal had forced her to discover her true strength. The people who once mocked her now sat in disbelief, faced with the success they never believed she could achieve. Then, with surprising grace, she said she forgave them. She forgave the betrayal, the harsh words, the nights of tears. But forgiveness did not mean forgetting, and it did not mean allowing the same mistake again. She made it clear that while her heart was free of bitterness, she would never be used as a sacrifice for Kelechi's careless choices again. Her voice was soft but firm, every word leaving a mark that could not be erased. The room stayed silent as Amara walked toward the door. The fleet of luxury cars still shone brightly outside, a reminder of her resilience and victory. Neighbors and relatives whispered in awe, some even recording the moment, knowing it was a story that would spread like wildfire. Amara left not with anger but with dignity, her head held high, her spirit unshaken. It was more than revenge, it was a lesson. A story of betrayal turned into power, of pain transformed into success, of grace in the face of humiliation. Viewers are left with a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are born from the deepest wounds. Hi, besties sparkling heart, thank you so much for watching till the end. Glowing star, please don't forget to like, thumbs up, drop your thoughts in the comments, speech balloon, and hit that subscribe button bell for more powerful stories. Bye for now. Sparkles.